All right, in Omaha, and I was happy to see a good face here, a friendly face, and Stephen Bardo doing 4 games on Westwood One Sports in the first round of the NCAA Tournament, including the Illini's 85-69 win over Morehead State. You resting up on this Friday, Stephen? I'm sure you're doing a lot of scouting going into this game, but you called all these teams yesterday. So, man, that's a marathon.
It is a marathon. It's fun. It's great to be courtside at NCAA tournament basketball. And the thing is, I'm on the radio, so Kevin Kugler did most of the talking. So he's the real hero. His back is kind of sore today from carrying me through all those broadcasts.
I bet. But let's talk about Illinois first, and then we'll get into the second round matchup against Duquesne. Didn't start all that well, 9-0, and Illinois continues to build these early deficits. But boy, when this team gets rolling, Stephen, look out. What stood out most to you about Illinois in their first round victory over Morehead State?
Brad Underwood finally let Dain go. We've been saying free Dain Dainja for 2 freaking years, Jeremy. And we finally got a chance to see the big fella. We saw him in the Big Ten tournament. He played very well, but he got extended minutes yesterday, and he's been doing it since he came to Illinois. He's not perfect, but he just gives them an element that they did not have if he's not on the floor. So that was the biggest revelation for me. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. Is having the best season of an Illinois player in program history. So that's been consistent. But Dain Dainja, the way that he played yesterday, I think gives Illinois even more weapons than they have. And I think they're probably one of the most skilled offensive teams in the country.
Let's dive into that, Stephen, because I think Dain has forced Brad's hand in playing this. And to Brad's credit, I mean, they were playing well when Dain wasn't getting a bunch of minutes. But with Quincy struggling, going to Dain, it's been clear he is one of their best options there. So what does he give Illinois, and why do you think he has forced Brad's hand to play that way?
Well, I think Dain gives you a low post presence that, if you can't get the booty ball going, which Morehead State did a good job of blowing that up. If you can't get that going, then it's tough to get post production. And so you have a post player that can produce. You have a rim protector. I think he had a block or 2 yesterday. You've got a superior rebounder because Dain goes after the basketball. Now, does he have turnover issues? Yes, sometimes. Does he maybe break down on defense? Yes, but the whole team does, right? So they're not a defensive stalwart type of team. And I just think that Dain brings you a guy that's going to run the rim, so he's going to put pressure on opposing teams. That can allow some lanes for Terrence to attack the rim. He's a post-up threat. He's an unselfish player. He's not a selfish offensive guy. And so I just think he gives you so many different options and gives you an ability to attack teams differently that I never understood why he didn't get consistent minutes. Never did.
What do you think the reason was?
Excuse me there. Brad can be stubborn. And there might have been something defensively. Yeah. Could have been something off the court. It could have been something that Brad just didn't like. But the credit that I'll give Brad Underwood that I've seen throughout his coaching career at Illinois, if it makes sense, he'll make a change. Mm-hmm. And I think that he's seen now that maybe Dain had to put in some extra work. I don't know. Maybe he had to get with Fletcher more. But whatever it is, it's coming to fruition at the right time. And I'm glad to see that Brad is flexible enough to take advantage of it.
I think Dain is playing harder, Stephen. I think the defense is rebounding is really what's been big, because I think he focused on the offensive end. And talking with Brad, I think the defense and rebounding is getting in on the court, and we know what he can do offensively. But, Stephen, as a player, I'm thinking of Dain Dainja, barely played in January, like playing 5 minutes a game in Big Ten play. Luke Goody was in really funk. Late in the season, he was dealing with a little bit of knee injury. Dre Gibbs-Allhorn had 5 straight DNP coaches' decisions to end the regular season. All these guys are stepping up. How hard is that as a player in this moment when you're not feeling that great? How are they able to do that, to be ready for this moment?
Jeremy, it's funny you ask, because we asked Dain that in the post-game interview with Westwood One. I said to him, how do you stay positive when you weren't getting opportunities? And so, Dain is savvy. He said all the right things, but I think it speaks to the chemistry on the team. These guys, they're as connected as I've seen an Illinois team under Underwood. And I think that if you get encouragement every day from your teammates, the guys that are playing, some of the guys that aren't playing, they're not bitching and moaning. They understand that they're a part of something very special. And so I think that it's the locker room chemistry that has gotten these guys over the hump. Drew Gibbs Lawhorn yesterday, he was so fired up when that first jumper went down. He's clenching his fist, he's yelling, he's talking, and then he picks up a silly foul, and Brad has to tell him to calm down. Right? I love that because it's a lot easier to get guys to calm down than it is to get them fired up. And so for those guys that you mentioned to maybe not play the minutes that they wanted to, maybe not have the contributions earlier that they wanted to, but are playing at their best at this time, you have to credit Brad Underwood, and you have to credit that chemistry in the locker room for those guys feeling uplifted enough to come in on a stage like this and perform the way that they have.
Because it's just in direct contrast to last year, Stephen. Last year at this time, there were guys that were not happy, and we're starting to think about the transfer portal. We're thinking about going home, right? Like this team is not thinking about that. I do think that's credit to some leadership in there and just that they feel they can do things. Like they feel like this can be a special run.
Matthew Meyer was an interesting individual, and I got a chance to know him a little bit, and he wasn't a bad guy.
No.
But I think his background and kind of his personality just didn't lend to him maybe being the best teammate. And so when you have a guy that comes in, he gets big NIL money because that's a factor now, and he's not quite the team guy, then it doesn't work. But this group, they like each other. They like to be around each other. And Jeremy, I credit myself as being a guy that can look at body language better than most. And I like to spend time around this group. And I'm amazed that Luke Goody will go and spend time with Ty Rodgers. Dain Dainja will go spend time with Amani Hansberry. They don't have clicks. Like even our Final Four team, we had a couple of clicks. Now we knew how to come together, right, and we rallied because we were all from the state of Illinois. It was a lot easier. There was something bigger for us to play for, right? These guys have figured out something to play for in an era that's very difficult to do. So all the credit goes to Coach Underwood, his staff, and the makeup and the character of each of these players is special because all of them have had to sacrifice at some point or the other, and they've all been able to come together and pull for one another. And so it's a special group, and it's a special chemistry that I think that we're seeing unfold.
Terrence Shannon, you mentioned he's playing as good as anybody in the country right now, Stephen. I think 11 of his last 14 games, he has 25 plus points. You said it. We've kind of been having this fun debate. I mean, we've seen Kofi be a first-team All-American consensus. We've seen Io have one of the greatest seasons of all time. And I remember asking Lauren Tate and Kent Brown at that time, seen a lot of basketball, right? Who is that the best season ever? And they thought at that time, yeah. I mean, Kendall, Nick have had seasons that are up there. But Terrence has put himself into that realm. So you said it is. Why do you think this is the greatest season an Illinois players have?
Because when you talk about Io DeSumo, you talk about Kofi Coburn, maybe you talk about D Brown, throw Nick and Kendall in there. You could go back to all those players. And here's the difference, Jeremy. Terrence Shannon is taking and accepting the challenge of guarding the other team's best player. None of those other guys really had to do that on a consistent basis.
So he's being Kendall and Steven.
Yes, exactly. He is being asked, and he's not only being asked, he's embracing it. How many guys around the country are scoring 20-plus points a game and then turning around, giving up their body on the defensive end, chasing through picks, blowing up screens, trying to deny guys, getting after them? Nobody's doing that. So Terrence Shannon, to me, I know Zach Edey's probably going to get the player of the year, but right now, Terrence Shannon is probably the player of the year in college basketball, in my opinion. And he's by far having the best season of any player that's put on an Illinois jersey. I don't care what anybody says. I will take that to the bank because I haven't seen a guy embrace the defensive end and still have the offensive firepower that Terrence Shannon has produced.
Yeah, it's been ridiculous what he's been able to do. Marcus Domask, I thought we all thought he could be good. This good, Steve. Like, he didn't even play that great score of the ball, and he's kind of been struggling to do that as teams try to take him away, but just took what the defense gave him yesterday, ends up with a triple-double. I love that Terrence was threatening to fight Marcus if he didn't score enough at the end of the game to get that triple-double. The 10th in NCAA history, just the 5th triple-double in Illinois history. He's just been way better than I think any of us expected. And what did he give Illinois in that first-round game?
You know, you made a great point because I thought Morehead State did a great job of focusing on getting him out of his game. And the maturation that we've seen Marcus go through is he's just patient. You know, he understands that, look, I'm on a great team. I got great players around me, and I'm a great player as well. So maybe today is not my day on the offensive end, but I'm not going to quit playing on the defensive end, rebounding and setting up my teammates. And that's when you know you've got a special team. That's when you know that one of the top players on your team can struggle offensively and come up with a triple-double in an NCAA tournament game. I mean, I saw him in the hallway afterwards, and I gave him a huge hug. And I said, man, you will never, ever forget this. Out of all the games that you played, when you get to be my age and you look back, you will be most proud of this performance than maybe any other game that you've ever played. And he just had this big grin. You know him, Jeremy. He's just a good dude. He was very appreciative of me taking the time to say that. But I really, truly believe that because it's an unbelievable example of what he's all about. He's a winner. And he's going to put himself in the back seat if he needs to. If he needs to be the lead dog, he can do that too. And so I thought it was an amazing feat, especially with him not scoring the ball the way that we've grown accustomed to seeing.
Waiting his whole life to play an NCAA tournament game. Pretty dang good debut for Marcus Domask in that
agree.
one. All right, Stephen, we saw it. Duquesne, I just thought out-toughed BYU in that first-round matchup to upset them. And Illinois has not had a bracket break during the Brad Underwood era. Maybe they do here, but Duquesne has the 4th longest winning streak in the country right now in 9 straight games to get in the tournament, to win a game here. So what do you think of this matchup and the challenges that Duquesne can present?
I thought BYU would be a much tougher matchup for Illinois than Duquesne, and here's why. There are Big Ten teams that are like Duquesne, right? There's maybe one Big Ten team that's like BYU, and that's probably Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So you get more experience going up against Rutgers, against Maryland, Penn State, these dogfight type games and teams. So Duquesne wants to punk their opponent. That's not happening with Illinois. Mm-hmm. It just, you're not going to punk a Big Ten team. I didn't think you would be able to punk a Big 12 team. Right. Kevin Kugler and I were saying on the broadcast, if you were to close your eyes and then open them up and change the jerseys, you would think that Duquesne was the Big 12 team yesterday, the way they out-physical BYU. That's not going to happen against Illinois. I think when teams try to get physical with Illinois, they tend to smile. They kind of like it because they're used to it. And so I don't think Duquesne is offensively gifted enough to keep up with Illinois. If you don't score 75 points or more against Illinois, you're not winning because Illinois can score 75 points rolling out of bed. Without Marcus Domask being on top of his game, they can still score 80 plus. So I don't think the Duquesne on their best day can score 75 points against Illinois. So I like this matchup for the Illini.
It come down to turnovers, Stephen, because Duquesne's going to get into you. So Marcus bringing the ball up. Like, I just feel like if Illinois they'd have to have 18 turnovers. I feel like to Duquesne have a chance at the end of this game. Is that your read?
It is, and that's and I'm gonna forecast a little bit because I think Illinois will beat Duquesne if things play out the way that I think they will. That Sweet 16 game against the Cyclones, that's going to be the litmus test because we keep saying, all right, they don't have a true point guard, but it hadn't hurt them. Oh, they're doing this, doing that. Well, now you get up against the number 1 Ken Palm rated defense in the country who forces turnovers 25% of the time. Now we're going to see if this experiment is going to work. That's the litmus test. Because if Illinois can beat Duquesne and they can get past Iowa State, they have a chance to win a national championship, in my opinion. Because I think Illinois would match up pretty well with UConn. That's just me.
Yeah.
I don't think UConn can match up as well against Illinois as Illinois can match up with UConn. So I'm forecasting a little bit. And so yes, the turnovers against Duquesne, that's the only way that they can stay in the game with Illinois. If Illinois can take care of the basketball, I think they'll be okay against Duquesne.
I agree. UConn doesn't want to see Illinois. That's a team you don't want to see at that point. But Iowa State is just such a contrast of styles. I think it would be a phenomenal matchup. But if they can take care of business, beat Duquesne, get to a Sweet 16 for the first time in 19 years, Stephen, what would that mean for the program? What would that mean to you? I know you're calling this objectively, but as you as an alumni, put your alumni hat on, what would that mean for you to see them in the Sweet 16 again?
Oh, I'd be ecstatic. And here's the thing, Jeremy. After tomorrow, I'm done working. So now I'm putting my Illini gear. Like, I got it covered up. I'm actually going to work over here. We got to do interviews, but I'm rocking my gear, man. That's who I am. Now, when I'm making my money, when I'm making my green, I gotta do what I gotta do. But I mean, I'm pulling for these guys, man. I mean, you'd have to be Ray Charles not to see that this is a special group, right? And so if they do get to play at the Sweet 16 level, it's going to be so great for the program because we know what Illinois is. We know how special this program is. The postseason hasn't reflected that. But if you get to the Sweet 16, if you get to the Elite Eight, now you're starting to say, okay, now this is the program that we expect as Illini Nation. So I think it would be great for the program. I would be ecstatic. My teammates would be ecstatic. All the guys that played for Illinois would be overjoyed. And I know the fan base would be as well.
I thought, Stephen, last question for you. Win the first round, I feel better about them. Just getting that under your belt. Yep. As you get deeper into the tournament, how is the feeling different as a player? What is the key to executing once you get into the second round, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight?
You know what, Jeremy, to me, the first round is the hardest part because I'll take you back to 1989. People forget our first round matchup. We played McNeese. I think it was McNeese State. And they had Michael Cutright, who was a future pro. I couldn't do nothing with him. I think he gave me 26. And I think we won 78-71. It was a much closer game than people realize. But once we got over the hump, once you get the first one under your belt, now you can just go play. Do the scouting report, do your preparation, and go play. You're trying to win 3 2-game tournaments. That's it. And the first game is the hardest. Now, once you get the first, now you can settle in and be who you are. And Illinois they've been consistent all year in terms of scoring the basketball and playing the way that they play. So they got the monkey off their back yesterday. Now you might see an even more improved Illini team because I agree with you. They're not going to be afforded the ability to come out and spot teams 9 or 10-0 runs at this deep into the tournament. They're going to have to be ready to play, and that'll be the difference in my mind. If you see them come out tomorrow and they're locked in and loaded on defensive end, then you might see a special run by the Illini this season.
Stephen Bardo, you're the goods, man. Appreciate the time. Enjoy the calls on Saturday, the late tip-offs here in Omaha, as it's Illinois against Duquesne in the 7:40 tip-off. You'll hear Stephen Bardo on Westwood One Sports. Stephen, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jeremy.